Awesome. I didn't get any of the things you said just right now, even though I'm from Estonia right now. So, or not right now, but I am from Estonia, and I studied Russian for about 6 years in school, but unfortunately I haven't had any practice since then. So, but I'm really happy to be here with you all today and share you my story of how I've learned to elevate QA in different types of organizations. So yeah, let's go for a ride. So a little bit about myself and my background. So at the moment, I am serving at Testlio, a company that I founded as a chief testing officer. And previously, before my entrepreneurial career, I was a software tester. And software testing is something where my heart has lied for a long time. And even in my today's role as a chief testing officer, I work with the community of our global community of software testers, help them be engaged and find them more opportunities to share their experiences as well. And my doings have been also recognized by the President of Estonia. So I was recognized as the Young Entrepreneur of the Year, as well as the Innovator of the Year. So, so yeah, I've done some things, and today I'm hoping to share, oh perfect, thank you. So today I'm hoping to share some of my stories with you, how I became a tester, how I learned about QA, because I think there is still some misunderstandings in between are you a tester or are you a QA, like we're trying to kind of mess it up. But yeah, hopefully through my stories, you will learn about my experience, how I learned to elevate QA in different types of companies. And I also wanted to mention what Testlio is. So Testlio is a global community of software testers, and we really do passionately test software to help companies provide amazing app experiences. So our customers today include big mobile companies. So can you raise your hand if you are testing a mobile app today in your organization? Wow. That's a few hands, but hopefully you can bring some of my experience with you today from this presentation as well. So what will I talk about today? So first of all, I want to take you on a short journey, or actually it's quite a long journey, of how I became a tester, as well as how I learned about QA and really learning about the importance of QA. Because in today's world, QA is oftentimes, we think about it as an afterthought, right? And but as like the entire industry is shifting left or right or up or down, the QA and testing industry has evolved quite a lot as well. Especially now when we talk a lot about connected world, right? We're all on our mobile phones all the time using the apps. The world is extremely competitive, so I want to tell you about like how I worked on in different organizations and learned about the importance of QA. I also want to share some of the common misconceptions that I faced as a newbie tester when I started out as a software tester. So now I've been in the software testing industry for more than 10 years. It was almost at the time when iPhone came out with the App Store, right? So this is, I've seen a lot. And then lastly, I also want to give you an example of a company that we've worked with and how they have elevated QA in their organization to not be an afterthought, but to be integrated and implemented into very early stages of the software development phase. So I will tell you a short story of their journey as well, and how they've become a very successful company of more than $2 billion in revenue, serving millions of customers in the US and in Canada. And Lyft is actually, how many of you have heard about Lyft? So Lyft is basically a competitor to Yandex Taxi. So you probably all know Yandex, right? Awesome. So that's not going to be a very beautiful slide, but unfortunately there was some formatting issues. So 71%, what does it mean? So 71% of mobile users abandon an app after 90 days of usage. It's incredible. Today we are in a world where the mobile app ecosystem is extremely competitive. And I think we can also translate into the web industry, where we know that if you don't provide great experiences to your users, then like people have so many options today to choose from, right? And this number is scary because we all know how hard we work together as teams to get those users, and once they get on board and we lose them in the first 90 days, it's super scary, right? But because we are in a very competitive space, right? As I mentioned, it's just so competitive. You have to deal with so many issues today as a company when thinking of different, operating system combinations that you have to test on. You have to test on different devices. There are people with different network conditions, whatever it is. And it's scary that we were missing, like in the first 90 days, like 71% of our user base is going to be disappeared. So, and now I really want to, like what I've learned is that within the past 10 years, going from web development companies to product companies to mobile companies, is that QA is oftentimes siloed into the organization. And we are seen as a separate role. And oftentimes we're also seen the ones that have to be taking care of the quality. But to my understanding, and over the years, what I've learned is that QA is everybody's responsibility. Oftentimes, you might think in the audience right now, like, what is she saying? My team or my managers would never understand that, right? But I think at the end of the day, what really proves the point always is the data and the experience that we get to share with each others. And so I'm really glad that I get to share a story with you, how we work with some of the most successful companies in the world and how we have helped them to elevate testing and QA in their organizations so they can really provide greater customer experiences. So now I'm going to take you on a journey where I learned about testing, as well as becoming a QA and really understanding how I can bring value to the company as a tester. So in 2008, I was graduating high school in Estonia. Who's ever been to Estonia, by the way? Oh, awesome. Nice. Very cool. So I graduated like a local school in Estonia, and it was like really, really scary time for me because I had no idea what I want to do with my life. And then in 2008, after I graduated, my sister, who lived in London, invited me to London and said, like, hey, Kristel, just come out here. You'll work here during the summertime, and you'll figure out at the end of the day what you want to do with your life. Or obviously, as a young girl, I had many options, right? I could go to Australia, I could take a year off, I could do anything because the world is so open these days, right? But at the same time, I just really wanted to go and study something. And then in London, I met a lot of my sister's friends who were all working in the tech industry. And they all told me that technology is the future of ours, so go study programming. And that's what I did. Even though I had no relationship with computers, the only experience I had with them was just playing games like Heroes of Might and Magic and Doom and Tomb Raider, and that was it. Like, I never thought about how products are actually developed and like the impact it has on us, right? But it didn't really scare me because I had nothing to lose, right? And I've always had that type of a mindset that like if you have nothing to lose, then just do it and take the risk, and you can only learn from it, right? And also learn from your failures. And as I stepped into my college, I went to study programming. And then during my second year in college, I first discovered about like the industry of testing and QA. To this point, I had this understanding that testing is really serving like the developers, and we work to find issues, and if there are any issues in production, then it's always our fault. But at the same time, we carried this role carried so much responsibility for me, but at the same time, it felt really weird that it wasn't valued at the same time. Like people constantly, when you go out and you develop a product, you don't think about testing. Even when I think about from my own perspective, when I started Testlio, it was just me and my co-founder. We went to a hackathon in London. We hacked for 25 hours in a row, and we had to come out with a prototype. But at this stage, you really want to release fast and you want to release often. So we had no time for testing, right? The only testing that we did was obviously some user testing, right? Like, is that going to work or not? Like, I essentially, as this product or this company was born out of my personal frustrations, like I just saw that there was this need, but that was all the testing that we did. And so QA has always been an afterthought. But when it comes to mobile, the game changes, right? Because today, you put so much resources into getting a user, and if your user leaves you, it can hurt your company a lot, because mobile users these days are very vocal as well. And I'm sure that some of you in the audience that already work with mobile apps can sense it as well. But at the same time, as you are testing any web app, is it for consumer facing or business to business facing, you all know that the frustrations that come from your users can really hurt your company, because customers and people are so vocal today. Like, if they don't like anything in the market, they will just go out to Glassdoor or like a site where you can, for example, say bad things about your employer, or there are App Store, for example, where you can burst out like all of your frustrations with the app, and then the next time when somebody wants to research for like, oh, how can I order food at home, then I won't be using like Uber Eats, for example, right? So there are all these things that matter. So, but at the same time, what I've learned is that QA really carries a lot of responsibility, but at the same time, it's weird that it's such an afterthought. So in 2009, when I discovered testing and QA, I felt that I don't want to work as a programmer in the beginning, because I felt I just don't have any experience yet. So I had only been knowing computers close for a year, so I felt I had nothing to give. And then everybody in school told me, if you don't want to do programming, then you can start off as a tester, because anyone can do testing. Has anyone heard that before? I'm sure you are. So you hear that a lot, that anyone can do testing. And anyone can, which meant for me that if I can do testing, then I am responsible for quality as well, which was so weird. But anyways, I was like, yes, I can do it. So yeah, that's what I did. So in 2009, I started looking for a job. I had nothing to lose again. So I found a company in Estonia that developed websites. So they developed websites for traveling companies, and it seemed like an exciting opportunity. This team that I worked for was super agile. So they had weekly sprints, and they released very often at the same time. And I was brought in there as a young student to help them with finding all the issues so the customers can be happy. So my only goal for this was to find as many issues as possible. And at this point, I really thought that the only way I can elevate QA in this team is if I find lots of issues. you already, now I'm thinking about, do you already think about the same things that I do? That quality isn't always about quantity, right? So the more issues report, it doesn't matter that if we find all these issues, they are all going to be fixed and everything is going to be okay. Like software development is an evolving process, right? So we can't always fix everything and take care of everything, right? So, but it was just interesting point for me in my career, in my beginning of my career, as a lot of you might sit here in the audience today as well, and you might think that the only goal in your organization is to find as many issues as possible. Even in those past few years, I met some companies that have this type of mindset, and they are not doing well because testers are evolving in the industry as well. They know a lot more about how they should be valued and why they should be valued. So yeah. But it was interesting for me in the beginning of my career that the goal for me was to find as many issues as possible. And there are so many things so wrong about this. And then I moved on. I stayed in this company for about 4 months, as it was like a project basis team. And then I moved on to a bigger company in Estonia that developed different software platforms for telecom companies. And this is the first time where I really realized that the quality is actually everybody's responsibility. It's not just us as the testers or the QA team that has to take care of the quality, but it's everybody's responsibility. So we are there for each other to share knowledge and share experience. And if we find any issues in production, it's not like, oh, this is your fault, right? This is your fault. You didn't find it. But it's so more like a team effort on figuring out why did this issue happen in production? How can we improve our strategies and processes to just make it a lot better next time, right? And it's a constant improvement process, because what I've learned over all these years that I've been in this industry is that there are always going to be issues. There are always multiple fires going on all the time, and it's okay. Just deal with it and you'll be okay. But you have to communicate to everybody in your team that this is this company is we want to make it a success, right? And what I've seen also in the industry is that a lot of the times people tend to think about that, oh, I'm here, I'm doing my job, and I want to grow to become a specialist, and I want to become a project manager, then I want to become a team lead, and you don't look at the big picture, right? But once you see that making a company a success is a team effort, then everything is going to be a lot better as well. So when I joined the company in Estonia, it was just a really good experience for me, and really good contrast on different teams and different perspectives on quality and testing. So it was a good learning curve for me, for sure. So that's where I really learned to gather information from different team members. So I started working directly with the developers, the product managers, figuring out who is our user. I went out to the customer to give out demos because I just wanted to take the responsibility and understand from the business perspective as well, what really frustrates them and what is their main goal in their business to figure out. And it was really, really impactful for my career as well, because I started I saw that I was really being valued as well, and I felt that this is the responsibility of a QA and a tester to figure out what makes our customers happy, and that's it, right? So learn and gather information for your advantages, for sure, very, very important. Then what happened was that I graduated college in Estonia, and by that time I already realized that I want to move away from Estonia and just do something else in my life. And at first I packed my bags, I sold everything that I had in Estonia, and I moved to San Francisco. at the tech industry, like the hub of tech industry. And story short, but anyways, after 2 weeks I left San Francisco because I hated it, and then I decided to move to London. And that's where I really like started questioning like a lot of my efforts that I was doing in my team as well, because I ended up working for a really now a successful company, but I was like the sole tester in my team and I had no one to learn from. And the second like really important thing that I've learned in this working in this industry, and whether you are a developer, you're a tester, whoever you are in the team, like you always have to kind of question everything, and you have to be able to learn from others and always surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. So what I started doing was that as I was working as an only tester in my team in London, I started reaching out to industry leaders, and I started reaching out to like going to different meetups as well, just to find more purpose in what I was doing, as well as share my experience and learn from others' experiences. So I reached out to like, through Twitter, I reached out to like James Bach, and me and my friend met him for dinner, and like we had this famous dice game with him. And we went to different meetups where we shared and learned about each other's knowledge. And so that's what I found was very, very important. In case we want to ever elevate anybody or anything in our lives, we have to really grasp what we're looking at and have a deep understanding in it as well. So, and then in London, I think was the first time as well where I really started making that distinction between testing and QA as well. Like I'm sure that a lot of you have heard in the industry that like testers name themselves as quality assurance because it's like a fancier role name, but at the end of the day, like what we testers do is that we gather a lot of information. We just don't find issues for developers to fix, but we try to be involved in as early phases in the software development phase so we can bring out risks, because we have them, like we, the testers, have so much that like we're wearing so many hats all the time. We work with the testers, we work with the developers, we work with product managers, designers, or at least this is what I did, right? And so testing for me became something that I understood that we are going to be there to gather feedback, and quality assurance and quality is going to be all of our responsibility. It's not just like one person taking care of quality. So how many people actually in the audience have ever felt that they are like they are the sole responsible owners of the quality? Yeah. Many hands. That's good to see. But don't worry, it will be okay. So, and then in London, I really started feeling the burden in the QA and testing industry as well, that this is really an afterthought. And I already shared you my story of like even starting Tesla, right? Like testing isn't something where like you start off as a company and testing is the first thing that you are going to be doing, right? But it's definitely an advantage for you if you are a tester and you start the company, because you are going to be seeing so much bigger picture as well. So, but yeah, testing, it was just interesting for me to realize that testing isn't like the first priority, but it was also understood that we can't always afford testers. So once you join a company, then just make sure that you really bring value to the teams as well. And then once we go out of this kind of mindset where testing is an afterthought, then definitely lots of great things might happen. So I just wanted to go over some of the misconceptions we hear about testing and QA as well. A lot of them you have probably heard, and this is important regarding my topic, how we elevate, is that every time when there is somebody telling you about that testing, anyone can do testing, or testing will always is going to be gone, like especially manual testing is going to be gone within the next 10 years, then you can always fight against them, right? So this is something that you've probably heard, that manual testing will be replaced by automation. Of course, yeah, this is not going to happen for sure. What I've learned as well, while working with some of the biggest media companies in the world, or like companies like Microsoft, CBS, hotels.com, like I see that on a daily basis, that that successful companies combine automation with manual testing, because human experience can bring so much more further. Then manual testing is dead. You probably hear that a lot as well. Testing can find all the bugs. Oh yes, this is my favorite. So who can believe that there is a bug-free product? I don't believe that anyone believes that. So, but this is one of the misconceptions that I faced as a newbie tester in the industry myself as well, that testing can uncover all of the issues, and then the product is going to be a perfect fit for the market, and then everybody is going to love it, right? Then testers don't have technical skills. I think this is now changing a lot more, but I think there's still such a strong mindset that a lot of the times in what some organizations do is that they turn their automation engineers into like software engineers, and like in this case what happens is that manual testing kind of again falls in the background, and people really stop seeing the value as well. But testers do have a lot of technical skills, and I do believe you do as well. And if you don't, then this is something for you to definitely develop yourself further in. But again, I believe, being in this industry for such a long time, is that there will always be room for humans as well to excel and help companies to produce better quality and results to the end users as well. So yeah, it doesn't work in production because testers failed. So I started with this as well in my presentation, that it's you failed. Like there are all these pointing fingers that this is your fault, this is your fault. Like there is nothing for you to do here, right? But this doesn't work. Like these organizations are way behind as well. And I love that one as well, that everybody believes that achieving 100% test coverage is going to be possible with automation, but I don't believe that. And lastly, QA is easy to do, or testing is easy to do. Anyone can do testing, but yeah, it's not right. So you can imagine my faces when I hear about those things in the audience as well. So now I would love to move over to my story and finish my presentation with like a short case study around a company called Lyft. And when we look at the mobile ecosystem, then again, we are in a very highly competitive space. And what I've seen over the years in the industry is that companies, especially on mobile companies, have decided to really invest in quality and QA. So there is this cool mobile quality report that is coming out every year, and they have multiple times stated that the budgets that are increasing year by year into quality and testing, because the mobile ecosystem is becoming so much more competitive. So we're constantly trying to automate more, or we're trying to replace automation with manual, or like there are all these different tactics. But yeah, what makes mobile really complicated is that there are all these networks, locations, OS combinations, devices. We have all this distinction between native and hybrid apps. Like there are so many different aspects that really make our product experiences suffer if we don't test the software. And so what I've already seen is that companies are increasingly spending more resources on budget, and I just really wanted to tell you that today because this is good news for our industry as well, that QA is becoming more important, and it's important that we share this with everyone so we can grow further ourselves as well and develop better products so our customers can be happier as well. So yeah, like by 2020, like the number spent in QA and testing is going to be about 30%. So no doubt that QA and testing is becoming very important. And in these cases where you are, like I think in the next 10 years for sure, a lot of you are going to be testing different connected devices, and you will definitely see how painful it is to release on those types of devices where you have so many different components that really make the customer experience differ a lot. So nowadays you can't really anymore just release an app, an update without testing it, right? Like you have to make sure that you are going to be testing, because nowadays your customers get the update as soon as the update comes out usually, and if you suck with it, then they have such an easy option to just delete your app and never come back. So yeah, it's interesting. And now this little story of how Lyft is really have elevated like QA in their organization as well. So Lyft is a company that was founded in 2012, and they are a ride-sharing company such as Yandex, for example, and we worked with one of their first QA team members, and when they started out, they were like in a very competitive, aggressive market. Like there were all these different companies popping up, like Taxify and Uber, and all these people wanted to take a chance in the ride-sharing market because this is such a huge opportunity, right? And what Lyft has done really great is from day one, they have really focused on providing great customer experience. And they have, from day one, they have thought about QA as their way to elevate customer experience as well. Because developers, a lot of the times, like to just more like think about their own features, but the testers have this like bigger mindset of like, oh, I'm going to be thinking how the users think, and I will be the user, and I will talk with everyone to understand what we are trying to achieve. And for Lyft, the number one goal always is to match the riders, the drivers with the customers, right? And so this is their number one main goal. And some of the strategies that they have used in their QA team is, for example, on a weekly basis, they review App Store and Play Store reviews to figure out like what are some of the main categories, for example, that frustrate our users, so we can shift our strategies with the development team into figuring out like how can we make sure that these things don't happen anymore and how can we fix them. As well as, obviously, as they're such a fast-growing company, then there are cases where QA isn't being involved in a very early phase, but that these cases, these are very rare cases. Instead, like what Lyft does very well is that they integrate QA and testing teams into very early phases, so they report directly to the engineering managers, and they already work with the team in the design phase. So they can question everything about like what the feature is trying to achieve, and is it the right way? Are we thinking about like how are these customers, for example, in Chicago going to approach it, or in Austin, or are we really considering all of the little bottlenecks that might experience or might cause customer experience to fail as well? And as I already mentioned, like really understanding the users is just something that really helps their team to be successful as well. So they go through App Store reviews. They have a beta testing community that they engage very often as well, just to be able to understand their frustrations so they can develop further. I think when we look back like 10 years back when we only had mostly web apps, we really didn't do that much of like kind of communication with our customers. But now we have all these solutions, and I think we all see that QA and testing is becoming an integral part of everything we do. And so we as testers have so much power and so much help to provide and value to provide to the entire teams. And now there are like few traits on being a very successful and valuable QA. So always ask questions. So this is the main thing that I was fighting with in the beginning. I was a shy young tester that really didn't want to ask a lot of questions. So always ask questions. The more questions you ask, the better your big picture about the kind of company is going to be. Be open-minded, be analytical. And always be learn it all, not know it all. What I also mentioned previously in my presentation as well was that a lot of the times people go work in companies without really looking at the bigger picture or really understanding the mission or the vision about the company. But you put so much time, your personal time, into working these companies, then why not like just helping this company really become a success? So I really do hope that most of you are know-it-all, or not know-it-all, but instead learn it all, so you want to learn a lot. And yeah, just always keep an eye on where the industry is moving as well. So we all know about, I think there are going to be some topics tomorrow as well about AI and machine learning. We already see those kind of being in the industry as well as helping delivering better mobile experiences. But it's always good to keep your eye out on all these strategies. And as I mentioned, like just sharing our experiences will always help us elevate QA even further in every organization as well. So yeah, my presentation will end with just some key takeaways. So yeah, that's kind of it. If we want to elevate anything in the world, then we first must grasp like the entire picture, and then we'll be able to do anything. And by the end of the day, like if we have data and if we share those experiences with each other, then it's easy to help each other to make a bigger impact in all of our organizations as well. All right, that's it. That's all. Do I need to do anything with Slido or not? I can check my phone, for example.
Да, друзья, у нас сейчас еще вопросы в слайда. Буквально секунду. Если есть вопросы уже из зала, то можете задать их в первую очередь.
If we have questions from the audience, you can start by asking them. I see, okay. Everyone is serious. Everyone is a little bit tired. We will turn it on. And importantly, friends, we have a number of questions, then we will have a round of applause.
We have one question. So what was the most difficult thing on your way to testing, and how did you deal with it? Oh, wow, that is an interesting question. Well, obviously, I think the hardest challenges have become when people think that the only value that testers bring is like by finding lots of issues. So just changing that mindset it was like, I think, the bigger step or bigger leap for me to take, where yeah, I had to like really think about how to overcome it and how to prove people wrong that testing is so much more important than just finding issues, and that's it, just proving the point. But at the same time, like I know I worked really, really hard myself to prove that I am so much more valuable than just like clicking around and checking different things in the app, but rather I was trying to always grasp the bigger picture and understand the mission and the vision of the companies that we work with as well. All right, any other questions? Nope.